Okay, let's quickly recap a couple things. One from the criminal things that are going on, and from the spiritual things that are going on. So, we have, just what's been provided in the last video is documentation by others and a couple letters from me that are inferring to different things about the hospital that was supposedly trying to figure out what's wrong with me, that they're going along saying, and they're treating me for rumored speculation, long history of mental illness, in between which they're pumping me full of antipsychotic meds. Then all of a sudden they find out that all their information is wrong or something screwy is going on, and then they start pumping me up with all these pain meds, which then start reacting again with the anti-crazy pills. So they're recreating the crime, and then they start freaking out, and then they start coming up with this herpes simplex encephalitis diagnosis to cover themselves with what's going on. So it's lie upon lie upon lie, and it's a Seinfeld episode that's funny. I don't need to repeat it. But it's a perpetuating lie. And it's not so much the initial, well, it is the initial crime, but it's the cover-up that becomes absurd. Okay, so let's go to the spiritual side of things. I got what God wanted me to have. Not only from the little episode, because this turned out to be the greatest thing ever for me, because it got me out of the marriage with Mick. It got me out of, the whole life I was leading up to. It eventually turned me around to go down to eventually find scripture and everything else. But I was headed down the path of getting back in the world, getting back on my feet. And so God used these people to take me down to His glory. I never saw that until recently. Well, I always kind of knew it, because when things start turning around, how do you say the absolute worst thing in your life is actually the best thing in your life? That's just crazy talk, but it's exactly what happened. But God turned my life around and did a unique way of doing it, because not only did He teach me He has full control of my life, even though I thought I had everything in my back pocket and I was going to prove, He showed me how weak and impotent I am when He's running things. And He showed me that when it was like all my false prize of all my experience as a consulting engineer and me doing my little tricks to catch Satan in his little lies. He just held him back and said, He could have turned this thing around if He wanted to, but He had a bigger plan in mind, and it wasn't until the last few years when it really made sense. But He taught me so many lessons in this. Is He's in charge, and it's all to bring Him glory. And hopefully He's getting the glory. He's getting a good chuckle out of it, and I hope some other people are. But this is serious stuff. Anyway, Bob Bose, and I hope that covered all the spiritual. I'll get reminded at the staff meeting if I miss something. But, He reminded who's in charge. Bob, this guy. So He gives me, when I'm getting all hopped up, He comes in, He goes, well, Brian, if you have any questions, we got this, this, and this. That's the only thing I have. But he ended up signing this. There's something funny about this. I don't remember. Oh, he just signs his name Brian. I thought that was kind of funny. Prescription, blah, blah, blah. If I had to get that done. It just signs it Brian. Okay, doctor signs it Brian. I don't know. Maybe they know. That guy was dangerous. So this is a letter to Ken again when I found out things were going nowhere because I don't have all my formal stuff. It was a fax. But let's see what this is. Oh, I think by then I found out things were going nowhere. It's rare for me to leave off a date unless it was on the cover sheet, which I don't have with this. What did I say? As you requested, okay. Please find copy of 3 correspondences to Hackley and Dr. Glynn as follows. July 30th to Denise, and my request for medical records. So this guy was helping me out for a while. Then I gave him a copy for the letter to Glenn requesting clarification for the medical records he was using. Then basically he was, refusing to return my calls. At least 10 calls have been made with no response. Then September 8th, here's a letter to Denise Salisbury requesting similar information that Glenn was asked to provide. So I got one letter from Glenn's office, and it gave me nothing. Absolutely nothing that I asked for. As I mentioned, I see a neurologist here in Chicago tomorrow. So I was in Chicago at this time with what's her name. My desperate attempts to finally determine what happened last Thanksgiving from a medical standpoint will hopefully start getting answers. So yeah, it'd be great if I had that report. I know it's somewhere, but I greatly appreciate any efforts. But it really didn't say much. It was basically what you told me. This is what I think. But he did no tests. He looked at the same MRI report as you guys are seeing. So for what Blue Cross Blue Shield got me out of that visit, he said, I don't know, but what you're telling me sounds like a brain drug reaction. So that's really all that kind of said. And I ran with that diagnosis because it kind of made sense. But that's all that missing report really says. So, but nothing like, oh, this guy is jacked off his brain and stuff. So as a direct result of this situation, I've lost everything imaginable. Oh, poor me. To believe any medical professional literally slaps a label of undetermined psychosis when there's so much evidence to support the volumes of inaccuracies and mistakes of the hospitalization during and after the fact is simply remarkable. For anyone to finally understand the impact that follows the neglect and ignoring documented facts that Hackley is responsible for is the pure intent of my request. I will defend everything stated herein and would give anything to be given that opportunity. Do I sound serious? Kinda, sorta. Unfortunately, only an autopsy. This is when I got a little weird. The only time? Well, no, I was going to go to a coroner and say, look, here's $200 or $500. And say, look, if you get my body, check out my brain, because I don't know what's going on. I was going to do that, but I thought, well, that's feeding the crazy even more crazy. It would have, but I didn't know. Unfortunately, only an autopsy would probably support what the hell my brain went through and is currently experiencing. My wife knew exactly what she was doing, and she will most likely win the end. Win in the end, Brian. You sound like a crazy guy talking like that. Again, thanks for any consideration in this matter. I knew game over because when I talked to him, he goes, you wrote that letter to Hackley, which really didn't help you, because the fake letter to Bose they kept it. And they said, look how crazy this guy is. He goes, I know you. I read the letter, and I understand now where you're coming from. But I opened the door of crazy for them. And he goes, I'll do what I can do, but I don't think this is going to go anywhere, because not only did I keep provoking and creating the funny story, that I gave them enough for them to kind of slide out where they got out, and I should have just done nothing, let Ken Longton do his job, but no, I had to make a story out of it. So that's my little oops in life. What else did I have? So this is just the patient rights thing that I said that this happened, I was upset here, and I didn't even mark this up. So, anyway, that wraps that up. Hold on. Okay, so now we're at October 15th. This is the last letter. So after the long and short of it, I was finding out I was going nowhere, so we're at October 5th. The other letter was in July. And it said, regarding my complaint against these guys, Dear Ken, thank you for updating me with the status of the referenced case this morning. The attached letter to Oceana County DA dated October 1st summarizes the potential criminal investigation regarding my hospitalization at Hackley. Please note that the DA's focus is not related to activities or conduct by the hospital and or Brian Glynn, but on the conduct of my wife and information received by her alone. I'm not sure what my intent is here yet. This document is provided only for your records and not specifically intended for your review in this case, unless deemed applicable. However, the information hopefully does provide you more insight and clarification regarding the necessity to receive clear and accurate responses to my original inquiry with Dr. Glynn and hospital representatives. If you need any information, so I'm not sure what. I was just making sure that he knew, I guess, that I was going to the DA on things, that I wasn't stopping, but he basically said it's going nowhere with his office. So, had I not done my little funny haha letter that didn't really get submitted, you know, that was the way I did things. It was, I would send someone else a fake letter that never got sent, and they would say, look at the crazy letter this guy is sending, but I never sent it. I sent them a bogus copy of a letter that never got sent. That makes sense? So whoever the crazy letter was addressed to never got that letter. Got it? So the people reacting to that crazy phantom letter used that against me, but that phantom letter never got sent to that person, because I could find out who that person was running to chase me down, and that way I didn't bother the person that the fake letter was addressed to, and I could find out what the other person was doing. Hopefully that made sense. Remember I was talking about you throw the rock in Chicago and I hear a splash in Pentwater? That's what that fake letter writing thing was. So when I wrote Jim, then I heard a splash in the DA's office or something, I knew the line of communication going on. So hopefully that made sense. Too smart for my own good. I know that sounded like a jerk statement, but sometimes it is what it is. Hold on. So not that I'm going to keep beating this, but this was the letter that went to Glynn's office saying, give me all these notes. You guys can stop screen if you really think, but this is kind of a copy and paste of the DRC, or the Michigan Department of Community Health letter saying I was on all these things and why were all my documents. So if you're interested, there's a letter I wrote to Glynn's office saying, answer these questions. So there you go. I'm not going to repeat it, but there it is. If you find something that you think is all exciting, then go ahead. Then the next one, I sent him a copy of all the documents saying, address this, address this. You guys have seen this. Don't worry about it. I'm skipping too fast. You guys have seen this. Provided history of... Anyway. So this was my little drug screen. We're not going to go through this, but this is me being engineer at Terracon with all of my prescription and what they were giving me. These were all the records. And I figured out how much they're giving me, and I found out what the recommended dosages were. And so recommended initial dose, 20. They were giving me 40. Recommended initial dose, 15. They're giving me 30. Recommended initial dose, 15. If we need to go closer, fine. They're giving 150. They're giving me 100. But twice a day. 2 times a day. What is this? Now I gotta go closer.
It's bad, you know. She asked me why. I just went on and told her. She asked me why. I just went on and told her. She asked me why. I just went on and told her. She asked me why. I just went on and told her.
That Indian blow the whistle, a fireman he rang the bell. That Indian blow the whistle, a fireman he rang the bell. That Indian blow the whistle, a fireman he rang the bell. That Indian blow the whistle, a fireman he rang the bell.
It's bad, you know. She asked me why. I just went on and told her. She asked me why. I just went on and told her. It's bad, you know. It's bad, you know.
You keep saying you got something for me, something you call love, but confess you've been a messin' where you shouldn't have been a messin', and now someone else is getting all your best. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you. Yeah. You keep lying when you ought to be truthin'. And you keep losing when you ought to not bet. You keep saying when you ought to be a-changin'. Now what's right is right, but you ain't been right yet. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you. You keep playing where you shouldn't be playing, and you keep thinking that you'll never get burned. Ha! I just found me a brand new box of matches, yeah. And what he knows you ain't had time to learn. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you. Are you ready, Boots? Start walking.